You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYBC.
CYTV
Here on the Daily Signal.
Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first out of 93 WYBC. Whether you're joining us this evening via Rumble or X or YouTube, we are of course thrilled to have you. There's a lot to dig into this evening, so without further ado, there are a series of Democrats today in the media landscape, in the congressional landscape, that are just having one of the worst days of their entire life. It is a very, very bad day. In fact, the worst day the Democrats have had in the year 2025 so far. And part of the reason is because they have decided to frame their entire personality like a junior hire deciding that now it's time to have friends. They have decided to make their entire personality about fighting fascism, but not actually fighting real fascism or the wanton state-run imperialism or secret state activities, or again, things of objective action violating the individual rights of American citizens. No, they've decided to fight fascism like Katniss Everdeen from The Hunger Games. They've decided to fight fascism like they're in their favorite Disney movie and all the characters have to do is believe in themselves and the wonders of victory will find them. Yeah, that's not in fact what this looks like at all. Jim Acosta, who you'll remember as CNN's White House correspondent during the first Trump administration, he is out here trying to do an I told you so speech, but given that nothing he actually said was going to happen has happened at all, and he's still the same clown just with a different circus, it's not really coming across the way he thinks it is.
People have to just start thinking bigger in this country, and they have to look at what we're up against. I got
to be honest with you. An endorsement of J.B. Pritzker, thinking bigger, I don't know if that's really the move here, but I mean, politics.
Sort of trying to shout this from the rooftops or wherever anybody will listen to me, the end of a bar in Kansas City, whatever. The President of the United States is a danger to this country, full stop. And
there's that
I
rhetoric.
think what we saw over the weekend with the No Kings protests is a mobilization, but to some extent, a recognition that that is the case. And I think you're starting to see some of this reflected in the polling. Even people in the Republican Party were afraid to show up at his birthday parade, the dictator Kim Jong-un birthday parade that he...
Okay, I've heard enough. So he makes these claims that Republicans are losing interest in the Trump administration, which just isn't true. Not only internal data, which is still a little bit embargoed, at least I can't share it with you legally just yet, as well as a couple of the other polls which are currently out in front of the public show that those who voted for Trump are improving on their approval ratings because Trump has started to hammer out the trade deals with the UK and with China. He's started to hammer out a foreign policy that is the exact opposite of the Obama administration. We'll get to that in just a second. And he's also enforcing immigration law and sending the National Guard in where there are riots. And he is, in fact, ordered his Department of Justice, the FBI, to investigate and arrest those, including members of Congress or mayoral candidates or what have you, that are violating the law, especially doing so on camera. This is extremely popular with Americans, but it is especially popular with those who voted for the red ticket, the Trump administration in the last election cycle. And so really what you're seeing is Jim Acosta trying to say, oh, say it ain't so, it can't be. And this brings us over to the fascisms. The Democrats have leaned in not only to this idea that Trump is a super duper danger to the country and inciting genuine acts of violence in doing so. They have now decided to throw themselves at federal agents, knowing that a little bit of assault will get them arrested. So Democrat New York City mayoral candidate, sorry, don't mean to be redundant, Brad Lander escorted an illegal immigrant to court today and tried to prevent ICE agents from apprehending the illegal immigrant. And he ended up, obstructing justice, and so he was arrested for it. And he thought he looked like some kind of a brave hero, and he actually looked like a really overweight athlete hitting the track for the first time in 30 years.
Let go when you show me the judicial warrant.
Where is it?
Sir, where is the warrant? Sir, I have my hand here. I would like to see the warrant.
I would like to see the warrant, and then I will let go. I would like to see the warrant.
So look at this guy. If you can see on the live stream, here's the dude. He's trying to chase after this illegal immigrant who, again, they are arresting. And he's like, where's your warrant? Again, if you don't have the documentation, if you are not a United States citizen, federal authorities do not have to show up and go, I have a warrant for your arrest. If you show up to a federal courthouse and you are in a public area, the federal government can, in fact, arrest you. If you, for example, if you have a jaywalking violation, you show up to court, and the feds know that you likely also committed some light murder on federal property, for example. You know, you went on a spree at the post office, God forbid. They don't have to wait for your jaywalking trial to be over at the county courthouse. That's not a thing. This idea that Democrats are like, you can't arrest him without a warrant. This is the same crew that has no idea what due process is. They're just magical words that they repeat over and over to themselves, like some kind of secular rosary, as though that's suddenly going to fix everything.
Go! Take him in! 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 Let's go. You don't have the authority to arrest U.S. citizens.
You don't have the authority to arrest U.S. citizens. No, that's not true at all, in fact. Federal law enforcement from any part of the federal law enforcement can, in fact, arrest you if you violate federal law. So let us say that there is an agent of the FDA, and yes, there are Food and Drug Administration agents out there, you know, rounding up dangerous cows, for instance. And you, near an FDA agent, decide to commit a little bit of light robbery. The FDA agent can, in fact, arrest you. This idea the federal government operates like Smokey and the Bandit, and you've got, you know, Sheriff Ruford D. Justice out of his jurisdiction, chasing the bandit in high-speed pursuit. That's not a thing. The federal government can, in fact, arrest you for violating a federal crime anywhere at all, because you reside within the federal United States. You may like or dislike that, but through the Lincoln administration and the Franklin Delano Roosevelt administration, that has been cemented into federal policy as well as the U.S. Constitution. Now, moving right along here, Kathy Hochul decided to do what every Democrat does. First of all, she shows up all indignant and picks up this goofy Brad Lander guy from his temporary holding, again, because he obstructed justice. He violated the law. He got arrested. So she shows up to pick him up, and it's supposed to be a big, brave moment. But as producer Nick pointed out, it really just looks like she's picking him up from daycare. Yay! So brave. So, like, no one cares, and they just start walking. No, they're like, nope, I'll go over here. Amazing. I love this so much. They think this looks good. Well, Kathy Hochul, again, governor of New York, has decided that the move, the plan of plans, the best thing ever, is to get out in front and swear. This is what the Democrats' new strategy is after they go, oh, he's a fascist. Well, they can't openly call for violent revolution because inciting violence is, in fact, a crime here in the United States. So they have to be a little creative. And so what they do is in these high positions where you're supposed to be above cursing, they throw out a swear. And it sounds about as natural as the first time a middle schooler sits in the back of a bus and thinks that they can also use the big adult swears. And it's just really awkward. Here you go.
Do you want to know what I really think?
No one wants to know what Kathy Hochul, who looks like discount Gretchen Whitmer, who looks like every other discount female governor or politician. No one cares.
Please, it's bullshit. How dare they take an elected official who's been going down there for weeks to escort people who are afraid to walk into a courthouse in the United States of America. Because despite them having legal status and following the rules and making their appointments.
They're not following the rules, by the way. By evading federal authorities, you have already violated the law. There is no provision in federal law which says, after you have hidden out for a while. Okay, so again, picture, someone who commits some kind of a violent robbery, and then they go hold their family hostage for a week, 2 weeks. And then they decide, all right, I'm going to come out and I'm going to walk to the police station. They don't have to let you walk to the police station. That's not a thing. This idea that everyone pretends that there's some kind of a magical Law and Order episode where there are all these hidden regulations and niceties that go with federal immigration enforcement is not true at all whatsoever. Now, Zeron Mandami, the open communist, also tried to get arrested, but nobody cared, and he just got clotheslined by a New York police officer. The person screaming like they just inhaled an entire bottle of Dawn dish soap, by the way, for those just listening, that's Mandami. And the police officer just doesn't let him through. Nope. Radio crew will catch you in a second. We'll stay up on the live stream. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Now, this brings us over to Senator Padilla. Again, in this massive meltdown that we've been having, Padilla gets in front of the Senate today and starts talking about his horrible experience with Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, whom, by the way, was rushed to the hospital in Washington, D.C. today due to, according to Tara McLaughlin to the Daily Signal, an allergic reaction. She's just fine. So, a couple of days ago, though, she was at a press conference in California, and Senator Padilla shows up to this press conference before a scheduled meeting he was supposed to have with her, 15, 20 minutes beforehand. He hears this press conference that she's giving. He wanders into the room without a security badge on, without any ID, any identification. He doesn't tell anyone who he is. He just starts running up to her. He just starts, again, strolling all up, like he's got something to do. He's going to get in there and whatever. And the security officers, those being the Secret Service and the FBI, they then drag him out of the room, where once he's almost out of the room, he goes, "Oh, I'm Senator Padilla." And then they put him on the ground and they detain him temporarily. And so he's decided to make this a really crazy, oh no, the evil, the fascism, the horror. Here you go, Senator Padilla.
I was forced to the ground. First on my knees.
Yeah, that is usually how one lowers oneself to the ground.
And then flat on my chest.
On his chest, flat. You know, it wouldn't be flat on your chest if you didn't skip chest day, by the way, over at the gym. Men's health is, in fact, important the older you get.
And as I was handcuffed and marched down a hallway.
Not march down a hallway, just like the Jews in the Holocaust. Oh my God, the Gestapo is here, everyone. Oh no. He rushed, again, if you don't think that this is something that individuals on security at events have to worry about, I show you this video of a guy from the far left, Mark Lamont Hill, who, when he was giving a bit of a speech, a lady walked up, he says, "Take a step back." And she walks up, and what does she do? She pepper sprays him. So, in case you're wondering, yes, there are in fact incidents, quite often, in which someone is speaking and a crazed individual, gosh, when have we seen crazed individuals in Boulder, Colorado, or Washington, D.C., or New York City, or on and on and on and on and on and on over the last couple of years? Violent incidents from the left. Again, at the time where there was the most anti-Department of Homeland Security sentiment from the left in our country's history. He goes up and the Secret Service tackles him. Or, well, grab him and then brings him out to the hallway and then forces him down. Because, again, no identification, nothing like that. Now he's going to make his big tears. Not only is he going to cry big tears about it, which, as far as just crying in the Senate is your method of protest.
I was forced to the ground.
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry, I can't go on.
That's okay. Your tears say more than real evidence ever could.
Appropriate from The Simpsons. Chuck Schumer sat in a chair yesterday. I kid you not, this is news. And cut like 3 or 4 DNC kind of fundraising ads talking about how horrible and terrible everything is all the time, always. And it's just really funny.
Department of Homeland Security Secretary Noem was so derelict in her responsibilities this weekend. After Senator Padilla was manhandled, thrown to the ground, handcuffed, she lied about it. Nor has she said what
she did not lie about it at all. We, in fact, have the footage.
Action she's taken to correct it or apologize to Senator Padilla. She is just derelict in her responsibilities.
Yeah, that's good old Chuck Schumer. Yeah, that's the strategy. We'll be back in a second. We got to pick up the radio crew. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Ilhan Omar is also joining the great whining, blubbering mess of the Democrats. Again, it's really incredible to watch. This is the worst day the left has had in ages because on every single front, the economy front, the immigration front, which, by the way, it should stand to reason before we get to Ilhan Omar, just very, very, very briefly, that the immigration and the illegal immigrant numbers came out for this month. And we did, in fact, find that of all of the insane messes from the, again, kind of the previous administrative nightmare that promised us that, again, from Joe Biden's podium, well, Donald Trump can't really do anything. He needs all of these laws, and he's the real problem because Republicans wouldn't sign this bill. For May 2025, 0 illegal immigrants were in fact released into the United States at all. So, again, a lot of momentum for the Trump administration. This brings us over to Ilhan Omar blubbering about Israel and Iran and Trump in general. It truly is one of the greatest things I've seen in a long time. Here you go.
To be coming out of our country. I mean, I grew up in a dictatorship. And I don't even remember ever witnessing anything like that. To have a democracy, a beacon of hope for the world to now be turned into one of the worst countries where the military.
One of the worst countries, says the representative from Somalia.
Military are in our streets without any regard for people's constitutional rights, while our president is spending millions of dollars propping himself up.
Again, the Democrats continue attacking the military parade on Saturday that just honored the history of the U.S. Army. That's all it did. All that it did. Again, just the constant pearl clutching from the left over this and attacking the U.S. Army is not at all going to go the way they think.
Like a failed dictator with a military parade, it is really shocking, and it should be a wake-up call for all Americans to say this is not the country we were born in. This is not the country we believe.
Correct. This is not the country you were born in.
And this is not the country our founding fathers imagined.
You criticize the founding fathers constantly as being evil, slave-holding whatevers. The way the Democrats simultaneously try to play patriot whenever they're mad about something, which in this case, it's really just a temper tantrum about not getting enough attention. Right now, there are two political parties. I've said this on the show consistently. There are two political parties in this country. The first of these political parties is the Trump kind of populist coalition. And the Trump populist coalition includes a lot of Republicans and conservatives, a lot of traditional conservatives. It also includes 90s labor Democrats and a lot of independents. And then the other political party in this country is the more establishmentarian kind of Bushian GOP that is mixed with a few foreign policy and financial fiscal hawks. Those are the two political parties right now. There are two Republican parties which are in power. They are haggling, bickering in the open in front of the whole country. The Democrats effectively have little to no power at all whatsoever. And they've done this to themselves because they have made all of their issues that they believe Americans find the kitchen table issues. LGBTQ plus 2IA 765309, the awkward arguments of open borders, defunding the police, and everything I don't like is fascism. Sometimes Bernie Sanders will talk about free healthcare for everyone, even though it doesn't work anywhere that there's free healthcare. So then that's your whole party platform? That's what you got? Oh, and racial reparations for Jasmine Crockett. So at that point, what do you have? What's left? Nothing. So the Democrats are stamping their feet like toddlers. And it gets, honestly, pretty funny when you look into the way the media is handling this. Arnold Schwarzenegger was invited over on The View, and they weren't expecting him. Again, Arnold used to be this, like, he doesn't like Donald Trump, so he's the Republican governor you can bring on to say, I don't like him at all, get out. And instead, to the ladies on The View, Whoopi Goldberg looked like her face was 2 muscle strokes away from a chicken's rear end. Check it out.
Self, you are an immigrant. You're an immigrant in this country. Yeah. Did you have a visceral reaction to what they're doing, what ICE is doing, when you see the videos of it?
Well, I tell you, you said that the immigrant. I'm so proud and happy that I was impressed by the American people like that. I mean, imagine they came over here with the age of 21, with absolutely nothing. And then to create a career like that. I mean, in no other country in the world could you do that.
R.I.P. Ilhan Omar. Sorry about that, buddy.
Every single thing, if it's my bodybuilding career, if it's my acting career, becoming governor, the beautiful family that I've created, all of this is because of America.
That's true.
And so this is why I'm so happy to see firsthand that this is the greatest country in the world, and it is the land of opportunity. And I think because I'm such a proud American and a proud immigrant,
here it comes,
became to America, I was asked to do on July 4th a big speech, the keynote speech at Mount Vernon, where George Washington was laid to rest, and where he lived and all that, to celebrate the 250th anniversary of America, the existence of America. And I will be doing the speech there. They asked me because I'm an immigrant, and there will be 7,000 some people there, and there will be people that will be sworn in and will become citizens that day.
That's great.
So it's really a great, great celebration. And this is what this is all about, is to celebrate people becoming Americans and coming to America and all that. And so I just think the world of the great kind of history that we have with immigrants.
So he has not answered their question yet on what he thinks of ICE and the illegal immigrants and whatever. And it's going to become important here in just a second.
Immigrants in America. But the key thing also is at the same time that we got to do things legal.
Oh, no. You got to do things legally. Whoopi Goldberg looks like someone just smacked her with an urn.
That is the important thing, you know. So you got to do things legal. And those people that are doing illegal things in America and that are foreigners, they are not smart. Because
did you hear the gasp of the collective rich white women in the crowd? Did you hear that? Seriously, here, I'll go back just a little bit. I want you to see if you can hear this. It's always the exact same gasp of some scandalized.
They are not smart.
Did you hear that? It's that again, it's the same nonsense, and Whoopi immediately, her face is horrified.
And you have to do everything I can to keep things clean and to make my bed and to do everything.
Look, see the hand on the arm? They're ready for him to be done talking. It's like when they brought Norm Macdonald on, and he was like, oh, you didn't know that Bill Clinton had people murdered? And they're like, you can't say that. We're paid by them. Every single day. I love it. It's fantastic. They are having the worst day of their life. And now we get down to Israel and Iran. This is where everything is going to become very crucial because the president just left a G7 conference just outside of Calgary, Alberta, in Canada. If you don't know where Calgary is, it's like one of the only two places in Alberta that exists. And I love Alberta, but you know, he goes up to a major security conference, the G7 conference. And then amid the Israel and Iran escalation, the president announces he is going to leave almost at the end of the evening and then flies home middle of the night to Washington, D.C. and convenes the National Security Council, who met until just a few hours ago. We're going to talk about that beginning over on the live stream. Radio crew, it's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Now, this is where the rubber does, in fact, meet the road. This is why Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and all of the other squad members in Congress are losing their marbles, as Bernie Sanders might say, because I was told, and you were told, by these crews all the way back to the Obama era, that if we just gave Iran enough money and we just kissed enough butts, that someday, if we just put like a basketball program for adult men in Damascus, that was going to convince them to throw aside their explosive women-beating ways and join the rest of us in civilized society. And we flew the pride flags at the embassies, and we talked about how important it was to say how evil the colonizer is and all this other nonsense. And you know what it did? Nothing. And the U.S. left Afghanistan during the Biden administration, not in a respectful and in a way that was dignified, not in a way that kept our troops safe, but in a way that got 13 U.S. service members killed at Abbey Gate, and that gave the Taliban all kinds of U.S. equipment and material that would go on to be sent around the Islamic fundamental terrorist world. And this brings us all the way to the Iran of today, who believed that Trump was just a bunch of talk. And Trump said, I'm going to give you 60 days to make a deal with little Steve Witkoff to say hello, Steve. And he sent Steve over there, and Steve said, okay, we might let you enrich a little bit of uranium, but you got to let us come inspect it. And the Ayatollah said no. And Witkoff said, okay, well, you do have to let us come in and inspect what it is that you're doing. Full unfettered access. You can't say, yes, this is the primary site, not that one over there with the post-it note that says, promise this isn't the secret enrichment facility, which is what Iran's literally been doing. Again, Iran, the idea that Iran has not, in fact, been pursuing a nuclear weapon, which has popped up as a very weird take in the last couple of days, is in fact not correct at all. And the reason it's not correct at all is because Iran has consistently refused to allow investigations and specific analyses of their enrichment facilities. If you want to build nuclear power, then allow the crews in to inspect that you're not, enriching to the types of radioactivity that would allow for disastrous nuclear weapons. So Trump said you got 60 days, 60, and they didn't take them. They didn't take them. And so on the 61st day, from what we can gather, Trump essentially told Netanyahu, go, fine, have at them. And so they did. And the first night, we saw 200 missiles from Iran. On June 13th. They fired back. Israel struck on June the 12th. And Iran fired back 200 missiles. And I was told, oh, here it is. It's World War III. Trump's got us into war. He violated the very promise he told us he was going to keep us out of this boots on the ground forever war. Now Russia's going to join in, and it's going to be Saudi Arabia's even issuing this strong condemnation. Oh, it's just ruined everything. It's the end of the world. It's horrible. And no, in fact, it wasn't. On June 14th, there were just 100 missiles that were fired. On June 15th, 75 missiles that were fired. June 16th, being yesterday, just 30 missiles that were fired in the overnight period. And now, Russia is kind of half-heartedly as we speak, or excuse me, not Russia, Iran is half-heartedly as we speak, lobbing like 10 missiles kind of at a time, because Israel has in fact bombed most of the petroleum sites where they derive and refine the type of fuel needed for those ballistic missiles. Number two, because as soon as they start warming up those particular launch sites, the IDF, which has maintained air superiority, and we're going to talk about the we from Trump's statements here in just a couple of minutes here. Now, I want to make this explicitly clear. Explicitly clear. Right now, around the world, Iran has been left completely abandoned, and it is its own fault. Russia has abandoned it. Putin has explicitly stated, no, not going in to help Iran. Syria, Iraq, and on and on. We're going to talk about that. We got to bring the radio crew back from commercial here. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on the Daily Signal. All right.
You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
Now, regarding Iran, Russia is out. Syria is openly allowing not only the interception of Iranian ballistic missiles over its territory, it is allowing Israel to refuel fighter jets over it and is participating in the interceptions. Jordan is participating in the interceptions. Saudi Arabia is directly participating in the interceptions. India and Pakistan has not come out and said, well, if Iran does this, we're going to come in. No, Pakistan has said they are out of it. China has had one flight kind of some unknown supplies that was kind of lost over Turkmenistan that might have made it to Iran. And there are sufficient on-the-ground statements to suggest that 2 more Chinese flights, either through contract and mercenary groups or other factions in the region, have turned the Chinese planes around back towards the mainland. Iran is all alone. And not just all alone because it's squandered already its massive supply of ballistic missiles. The Ayatollah is mentally strained because he has to keep training new generals. So on the first night of the strikes, Israel comes in and they throw a missile through the side of a building and they destroy a big portion of the Iranian military generals and staff. And then a new general steps up, Major General Ali Shadmani, the new Iran chief of staff. He was in office 2 days and then he got killed. So the Ayatollah is essentially going through workplace fatigue because he has to train new chiefs of staff. There's extreme civil unrest throughout the country. There's rumors that the Kurds, the Kurds, a faction in the Middle East that has been routinely screwed out of territory for their entire existence. And a moderate group of individuals who, believe that you don't have to beat women. I know, crazy concept kind of an idea. There she is. So there's some civil unrest that has occurred. Reza Pahlavi, the heir to the original Iranian throne, has now come forward and issued quite a serious statement. Now, this is, not in English, so I'll provide a little bit of an on-site translation that I can. But again, for Iranians exiled from the country now to be calling for open regime change is a pretty big deal.
When an opponent...
That's Hegseth. Let me pull the right one up here. There we go. He says, my fellow countrymen, the Islamic Republic has reached the end, and it is in the process of collapsing. Khomeini, like a frightened rat, has gone to hiding underground and has lost control of the situation. What has begun is irreversible. The future is bright, and together we will pass through this sharp turn in history. He also states, to the military, law enforcement, security forces, and state employees, many of whom have been sending me messages in recent days, I say, do not stand against the Iranian people for the sake of a regime whose fall has begun and is inevitable. Do not sacrifice yourselves for a decaying regime. By standing with the people, you can save your lives, play a historic role. He essentially calls for the Iranian regime to fall. Now, this is something I've said before, starkly different from the past kind of Bay of Pigs kind of regime change. So as you remember, the CIA was partially responsible for changing the regime of Iran in the 60s into the 70s. And it lasted for a couple of weeks, and then a violent Islamic revolution swept over the country, turning over all of the CIA's handiwork. Now the people are extremely tired of this. And it is unlike the Bay of Pigs, in which, what I had cautioned, the idea that the United States was going to, through Nicaraguan rebels, overturn Castro's regime in Cuba. Unfortunately for the United States, the people of Cuba at the time really, really, really liked Fidel Castro. And so the revolution didn't stick at all, and the rebellion against Castro was quashed immediately. Now here, what we're actually seeing is a large swath of the country that is in fact interested in a regime change. That all said, there is a huge question hovering over the United States. Is the U.S. going to get involved in the Israeli-Iranian war? To what extent? What is this going to mean? Am I being asked to die for Israel? No, I'm going to answer that right up front. No one's asking you to die for Israel. No one. The absolute most the United States might in fact do in this case is provide Air Force bombardment of precise and particular regions. From all available information, I have not seen a single congressman, despite Lindsey Graham being the most gung-ho of gung-ho guys ready to go in and whatever. I'm not seeing the calls for boots on the ground here. I'm not seeing it from any Trump cabinet official. I'm not seeing it from any aspect of the Israeli government. I'm just not. And so as far as the idea that this is another foray into a forever war, we're going to be here forever, I'm not seeing it at all. I'm just not. The evidence does not support it. And the Trump administration has made this explicitly clear that right now the United States is simply showing peace through strength. Now, here's the problem with peace through strength, ladies and gentlemen, just to be explicitly clear with you. Peace through strength only works if you are willing to back up the peace that you are preaching. In 2014, Obama promised there was this red line that was not to be crossed. And then you know what happened? The red line was crossed. And Obama did nothing. And a new red line was drawn, which was then promptly crossed. Then during the Biden administration, there was a red line that was drawn. He said, don't. And then the red line was crossed and Putin moved into Ukraine. And then he drew another red line and said, Hamas, don't. And then they did it anyway. And then Hezbollah, don't. And they did it anyway. And there was never any response from the United States, except, sink hundreds of $millions into a floating pier that promptly sunk into the Mediterranean. The Trump administration has not taken this approach in the second administration. They have essentially said the same thing Trump has said during the first administration. I'm going to come in, I'm going to take ISIS, I'm going to take Soleimani, and I'm going to... And pretty soon, the president fired a missile into Iran and ended Soleimani and posted an American flag. That has been Trump's position. Not this kind of UN hippy-dippy, we're going to go in and nation build. The President Bush knows what he's doing, Dick Cheney. We'll be greeted as liberators. Just go in and hold it, and you teach them democracy like a dumb dog. And you just say, all right, this here is freedom. You're going to love it. No, Trump does not believe that. Trump does not care. He does not believe, and if you believe, by the way, that everyone around the world, the heart yearns for freedom, all cultures are equally important and wonderful, then you do not know what you are talking about. I would encourage you to study other cultures and, in fact, how some have a lot of worth to bring, some beat women and, marry children and goats. So, just saying, for all intents and purposes, perhaps the idea that the Trump administration has in fact been consistent on this is true. He didn't promise these big promises. When people bring up the idea that, oh, well, Trump said he'd keep us out of some kind of a big, huge, forever war. Correct. Throwing a bunker buster, if Trump chooses to do so, through the Fordo nuclear enrichment facility mountainous terrain is not going to get the United States into a forever war. Everyone has left Iran completely. And just to be clear, President Trump does have his mind very well made up. So President Trump told reporters that he was just in no mood to negotiate. He gave him a chance, and Iran didn't take it. And so now, therefore, consequences.
Are you open to negotiating with the Iranians right now, or do you want to wait?
I don't know. I've been negotiating. I told them to do the deal. They should have done the deal. Their cities have been blown to pieces. They've lost a lot of people. They should have done the deal. I told them, do the deal. So I don't know. I'm not too much in a mood to negotiate now.
So Trump just isn't having it. He's not. And by the way, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. He gave them 60 days. Sent Steve Witkoff, who was willing to hand over just about everything but the kitchen sink, and probably the latest kitchen sink, over to the Iranians. So much so, the conservatives were going, are you really going to give them the same, like the JCPOA? That's right. The Obama era, where Iran gets to participate in its nuclear program, sort of, kind of. We'll give them lots of cash, kind of a thing. And they didn't take it. They didn't take it. And so then the media came out and said, well, are you going to call for a ceasefire? Because, yeah, that has always ended well. I've yet to see a single case in which a ceasefire is called amidst these kind of things, and then presto, peace breaks out, bursting forth like a field of lilies. Trump isn't buying it.
What specifically is better than a ceasefire? What are you looking for here?
An end. A real end, not a ceasefire. An end.
So something that would be permanent.
Yeah, or giving up entirely.
Is that okay too? Are you close there? Is that possible in the next 24 hours?
So again, the question is made, well, are you going to call for a ceasefire? No, Trump wants an unconditional surrender, as he posted on Truth Social. The president's made a series of posts. My personal favorite is a direct callback to what he did with Soleimani. He is reminding the Ayatollah, by the way, of how he has the absolute ability to turn Iran, which is not like Afghanistan, the mountainous country of endless. No, it is a country that is a lot like Saddam's rule of Iraq right before the Gulf War. This very, very fragile regime. Trump said, quote, we know exactly where the so-called supreme leader is hiding. He's an easy target, but is safe there. We're not going to take him out, parentheses, kill, at least not for now, because we don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin. Thanks for your attention to this matter. Radio crew, we'll see you in a second. We'll continue over on the live stream. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. I mean, yeah. And a nuclear Iran is in fact a threat to the United States. It is. Anyone telling you that it's not a threat to the United States, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, is wrong. They are wrong. Do you know how I know that they are wrong? Because we have current foreign terror attacks in the United States, because people are able to roll up to the shores of America with any kind of a shipping crate or container and cause serious amounts of problems. And a dirty nuclear device, which could be launched via something inside a shipping crate that gets close to the United States, would not be able to be immediately intercepted by the United States and could in fact result in millions dead. That is a problem. Now you can say, well, I'm not willing to pay the cost to make that not happen. Okay. And I think that what Trump has done here is a brilliant stroke of diplomacy, allowing Israel, through United States material, to essentially crush the Iranians until all of the anti-air defenses are gone, so that the United States Air Force, if he so chooses as the commander-in-chief, drives a sortie over that failed state and drops a bunker buster or whatever the president of the United States has in mind, if he chooses to do so. It's not some big forever war action. Please, do. Share with us over at the Mail Time. Head over to TonyKinnett.com. Tell me, I am interested in hearing how this action, after every single country that formerly supported Iran has abandoned it, except maybe China shipping in a plane half-heartedly full of medical supplies. Please tell me, do share how this is the big World War III moment, that all the BRICS countries, the economic alliance of Brazil and South America, is suddenly going to go to war with the United States. No, it isn't true. And individuals who have in fact told you so have lied to you. Some of them have lied to you because they have directly taken Qatari money. We have the receipts. We have the financial documents. Some of them, as have been exposed over on social media platforms like X, don't even live in the United States. And you have individuals from places like Pakistan who are posting, I am an American citizen. I was born and raised in America. I will not die for Israel. Again, that's a false argument because no one is asking you to die for Israel. But again, unfortunately, by the way, they did in fact track the individual's IP. The guy's name is like Abudas and he lives in Pakistan, lying about who he is. And to make it explicitly clear, there are a lot of friends of mine on the isolationist right that have made these cases. The fact of the matter is, just like when the Bushian Republicans said Trump was going to ruin the Republican Party in 2016 and they were wrong, and just like in 2020, when the Trump team said China's meddling in the election and it took until yesterday and today to reveal, yes, China was in fact meddling with the 2020 elections in the United States. Others were wrong. In this case, the population, or the populists and the isolationists who have promised, oh, this is the end of Israel and it means, it's going to be endless global war. No, not seeing it. The evidence isn't there. It's just not. I'm trusting Trump in this particular process because so far, foreign policy and immigration, he has been right almost every single time. Now, this brings us to something else that he and a lot of us were right on, which is that the teachers' unions are in fact cutouts for the Democratic Party. Randi Weingarten, Becky Pringle, and other members of the teachers' union apparatus have been a disaster for the United States, for students, for teachers, for public schools, for parents' rights. We're going to talk about it with Corey DeAngelis up next. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Hopping over to Corey DeAngelis, of course, the massive champion for school choice in this country, senior fellow at the American Culture Project, visiting fellow at the American Institute for Economic Research, executive director of the Education Freedom Institute. There's just a ton of stuff we could introduce you as, but Corey, good to have you, my dude.
Hey, thanks for having me, Tony.
Well, let's hop right into what really is one of the worst days for Democrats, because I'm seeing questions asked over in Congress about the involvement of Randi Weingarten and Becky Pringle officially in the Democratic Party, which may have, a couple of serious problems with it. This is something that you found. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, you think the teachers' unions were supposed to be apolitical. I thought they didn't want politics injected into the classroom. Now we've seen that to be a lie. Randi Weingarten was in a prominent position at the Democratic National Committee for 23 years. And guess what? The media didn't mention it at all. Not once. You can't find any reference to this. But now we know once she steps out of her role, the New York Times all of a sudden reports that she steps down as from her post at the Democratic National Committee. And a lot of people were asking, what? We didn't know this to begin with. Why was she there in the first place? And I did a little bit more digging, and we now know that Becky Pringle, the teachers union boss at the NEA, the largest teachers union in the country, she still is an at-large member at the DNC. These are political animals. They're not about education. And we saw this past weekend with the No Kings protest. You had Randi Weingarten jumping up and down. Looks like she was on a trampoline behind the podium, just screaming into the microphone.
You are the community to this president's chaos. And together we build a future of opportunity and justice for all. Hope over fear. Aspiration over anger, the promise of America for each and every
And do you want that person teaching your kid how to read, write, and do math? No, because she's a political, crazy lunatic who doesn't care about improving academic outcomes. They just want to throw more money at the problem, and they are basically just a money laundering operation for the Democrat Party. Randi Weingarten's union, they spend all their political funding on giving money to Democrat candidates. This ought to be illegal.
Well, that's actually what I was getting ready to bring up. This is one of my last big investigatory pieces, was all of this union money that was going towards candidates in different primary races, right? They were trying to shake not only the Democrat primaries in major elections, but actually funding these rhino Republicans in elections across the country. And now we've got Becky Pringle as an at-large member of the DNC. The question that I have, and the question that I believe a lot of Americans have, is why is this organization, if its presidents are open, direct members of a political party, again, not just, oh, I'm a registered Republican, oh, I'm a registered Democrat, oh, I like what this party is doing, but to be a member of their national convention? Why are they given all of this free access? You realize in public schools that if you have a teacher who is in a bit of trouble, they're not allowed to bring a lawyer to an administrative meeting, but they're allowed to bring a union member. Why? Why is an open political member of the staff, or essentially what is now a direct injunction of a national political party, given special privileges in our public schools?
Yeah, they should be forced to resign, and they should look into this. Look, Becky Pringle and Randi Weingarten make over $500,000 a year. And, a lot of people wondered why the schools were closed so long during the COVID era. Well, now we know they're in cahoots with the Democrat Party. The unions wanted to hold education hostage for children, keep the schools closed as long as possible, because that meant more COVID relief funding. They got $190 billion since March of 2020. It was just a way to get more funding, to extort more money from taxpayers and to hurt children in the process. You had Becky and Randi's unions both lobbying the CDC to make it more difficult to reopen schools. And now we know they were setting the policies at the DNC too. That should have never happened. And I bet you so many of the lefty media people in D.C. knew this was going on. They probably knew that they had these positions, but kept it under wraps because it went against their narrative. They just wanted to cite Randi and Becky as people representing the teachers, but they're only representing Democrat interests. And now we know that I think she got forced out of the DNC because she's so far left. She wanted David Hogg to win the leadership position. David Hogg has called the primary Democrats for not being sufficiently Marxist. So the teachers unions, they're not just out of step with the American public. They've gone so far left, they're even further left than the Democrat Party in general. This should really alarm a lot of families across the country. And this is free advertising for school choice. You don't want these people indoctrinating your kids, so you should be able to get that money. And instead of it being forced to the government school system that is staffed by the teachers unions, like people like Randi Weingarten and Becky Pringle, you should be able to take that money somewhere else. And then maybe, just maybe, the public schools will stop focusing on this stuff and get their act together.
Now, this is one of the things I want to pivot into because it's such a strong discord. It's so different from the way that the labor unions, especially labor union guys, just members on the line act, versus how these teachers unions act, who are organizing all of these protests at state capitals, nationally, and again, just being extensions of the Democratic Party. And, you say about the media, well, did they know and they just hid it from us? It did not take a master detective to think, well, maybe there is a little something here. We all knew. Again, the positions always lined up. The union said jump. The Biden administration said how high. We saw this with the CDC, right, in the emails we discovered during COVID. Now we're looking at a new situation where the 90s labor Democrats, the old Rust Belt workers, have largely left the party, leaving the union base of the Democrats now just a bunch of angry catty heads of protesters who are busy shouting, "We the people," over and over at rallies like Becky.
We the people! We the people! We the people! Yes! All of us have that right to life, liberty, and the pursuit
Exactly. And now we're surprised that we have so many protests at colleges these days. These same kids went through the public school system being indoctrinated to be activists. I mean, we're seeing that the public school outcomes aren't getting better, but we're looking at the wrong metric. I think they're solely concerned about creating social justice warriors. They're not concerned about creating engineers and people who are good at the basics. And so they had their priorities all out of whack. But when you see that they're more concerned about molding the minds of other people's children and shaping our country into a more socialist direction, it all starts to make a lot more sense, especially after this past weekend where you had Becky and Randi, the heads of the two largest teachers union in the country, fanning the flames of these nationwide Day of Defiance rallies all across the country. They're quote unquote no kings protest.
They fanned the flames of the George Floyd riots. They fanned the flames of the election riots. They fanned the flames of all of these, again, the no kings situation, the Los Angeles situation, those riots. They have fanned countless. They've fanned all of the pro-Palestinian, anti-Israeli sentiment around the country. They said that it was racist to open schools back up. I mean, how long could you and I sit here, honestly, and just give receipt after receipt after receipt after receipt? This is vindication on a level we haven't seen before.
Exactly. This is the perfect weekend for free advertising for homeschooling and school choice. But, you know, why in the world would the
Homeschooling and
teachers
school choice? Wait a minute, Corey. Are you saying the thing that has phenomenal support among all demographics, except for rich white women, and among all political parties? Gee whiz, I can't believe it.
Exactly. But the unions have Trump derangement syndrome. They put that on full display this past weekend. But they also know that illegal immigration helps their bottom line. Public schools are funded based on enrollment. Whether those kids are here legally or not, they get more funding per student, you know, when they have higher enrollment counts. So this is why you had all these anti-ICE protests among the teachers unions. It seemed like it wasn't related at first, but it goes even deeper than that, Tony. It's worse than that, because in public schools all across the country, they get even more money for students who don't speak English because they have to hire more people with specialized...
Because the ESL grants, because of the additional coordination efforts. We've seen this. I actually spoke to an individual writing a book on the immigration crisis into America's education system. When I worked in Indianapolis, I think you and I have talked about this maybe privately, that I spoke better Spanish than the ESL staff at the schools did. And it was frustrating because then you had students who spoke Arabic or Farsi, or we had a couple of students who spoke Japanese and Korean, and there was no one on staff for this, but the unions would lose their minds if we suggested that they went to another school, because then those teachers wouldn't be paying union dues for them. It's such a scam.
Exactly. That's why we see year after year that they even spent their COVID money on hiring more people. That's all they do. They didn't care about
it was just temporary. These are just temporary hirings. By 2025, they'll totally be, gone.
No, they knew that would create more political pressure to keep the funding at that level because politicians don't want to fire anybody.
And it's keeping property tax reform from occurring in like 18 states right now. I was like, why can't we cut the taxes and the spending? Well, because you rose all the public school budgets up to Mach 15 and then said, oh, yeah, it'll slow down. Okay.
And what does that mean for existing teachers who are doing a good job? It means less money for them. You got to spend the money somewhere, right? And that there's opportunity cost. If you're spending on hiring more people, well, then teacher salaries are flat over time. You look since 1970, per student spending has increased by 170% in real terms, but teacher salaries have been basically flat, a 3% increase after adjusting for inflation. So you hear the teachers who are upset about not seeing the additional dollars, but their problem shouldn't be with their competition, the private and charter schools and homeschool families. The problem is that their employer is a monopoly that has no incentive to spend additional dollars wisely in the classroom. Instead, it goes towards administrative blow. It goes towards the superintendents. It goes towards Randi Weingarten, who makes over $500,000 a year. And so the teachers, they should rise up against Randi Weingarten too, not just the parents.
I'm just, again, consistently amazed how many times you and I have to be right before some of these state legislators and national legislators start bringing the screws down on these organizations that, again, haven't done this at the expense of just the average ordinary taxpayers, although they have. They haven't just done this at the expense of perhaps Americans' rights or perhaps the institutional system as a whole. They did this and they continue to do this at the expense of children. who are trying to get an education. And these teachers unions are doing everything they can to benefit from the funding going to that so they can line their own pockets and, again, funnel it right back into the DNC.
That's exactly right. It's money laundering operation. They take all their money and it goes to Democrat campaign coffers, their buddies. And in the case of Randi and Becky, they were both part of the DNC. They are one and the same organization at this point. There's an incestuous relationship between the teachers
Corey,
union
that's just a
and the
conspiracy
Democrats.
theory. Oh, that's just Oh, that can't possibly. Yeah, well, there you go.
We have the proof. We have the receipts, and hopefully, just hopefully, the kind of benefit here is that people all across the country will wake up, see it for what it is, see it for what you and I have always known was the problem with the school system, and maybe we have more people not just call for school choice, but for abolishing the public sector teachers unions once and for all. They use your own tax money to lobby against you, to fight to trap your kids in their failing schools. And oh, by the way, ultimately to use your tax money to go to one political party. They're an arm, they're an extension of the Democrat Party, and they need to lose their 501c3 status at least.
Yeah, I think that those are some very acute points, and unfortunately we have to kick it over to commercial. But Corey DeAngelis, the school choice evangelist, senior fellow at the American Culture Project, really appreciate your stopping by for a couple of minutes. And again, congratulations to you for being right for the 847th time.
Thanks so much, Tony.
We'll be back in just a second. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Now, we're going to get into the Chinese 2020 ballot story. I'm not leaving that behind. But first, if you or a loved one are turning 65 soon, you're going to want to hear how our partner, Chapter Medicare, is saving people thousands of dollars. Unfortunately, being the government boondoggle that it is, Medicare enrollment is a maze of misinformation. And the victims are everyday Americans, parents, grandparents, including those of Chapter's co-founders. That's why they vowed to go the extra mile to do right by their customers. Chapter's advisors listen carefully, compare every single plan, and help you maximize your savings. People are relieved when they talk to Chapter, even making a typically annoying process easy and enjoyable. Working with Chapter is simple, it helps save a ton of money, and saves you days and days of research. These guys won't push you to buy a plan that you don't want, and their support is completely free. So if you're turning 65 soon, call them up. You will not regret it. And in fact, most people only regret not calling Chapter sooner. Call 415-787-4074 or visit askchapter.org/Tony. All right, now I do want to, before we go this evening, to touch on what is probably one of the most insane revelations that isn't insane to those of us who are paying attention. So, as you recall, from 2020, back in the day, the Trump administration asserted that the Chinese had interfered in the 2020 elections between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. It was an incredibly irregular election. There were a lot of rules that were shifted around for COVID that caused a lot of shady shenanigans really quickly. And now, as reported last week at the Gateway Pundit, video was released on Friday in Mandarin Chinese of a phone call request for fake ballots customized by a Chinese factory. The manufacturer is reportedly in Guangdong, China. So, here's where we get into a significant issue. 5 million ballots were ordered for production in this factory in China, now being exposed by essentially an activist concerned about democracy in Taiwan, Tibet, and Manchu. Now, if you bring it over to today, Director Kash Patel, director of the FBI, released a statement in conjunction with a Just the News article, John Solomon's group, saying, quote, "The FBI has located documents which detail alarming allegations related to the 2020 U.S. election, including allegations of interference by the CCP." It's one thing just to make some hypothetical ballots. It's another thing when Hillary Clinton then suggests on national television, if you're listening, China, please, please, please interfere. That's a problem. Now, from the Just the News article here, the newly declassified intelligence reports from August of 2020 were not corroborated or fully investigated, Instead, they were recalled from intelligence agencies at about the time that then FBI Director Chris Wray testified there were no known plots of foreign interference ahead of the 2020 election in which Biden defeated Trump. This is according to officials speaking to John Solomon's crew over at Just the News. In fact, another agency, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, had intercepted nearly 20,000 fake licenses, the same licenses that are fake, that illegal immigrants are using to bypass E-Verify in order to work at businesses illegally. These 20,000 fake licenses around this time, and the intelligence came in a possible corroboration of the report. So what does this all mean? It means that Kash Patel, director of the FBI, has released a declassified report that confirmed what many Republicans and independents had suspected all along. Whether or not it was enough to sway the election one way or another, you were told, I was told, that it is the highest form of crime and evil and unpatriotic whatever to question the veracity of an election. Only Democrats are allowed to question the results of an election. Only Democrats are allowed to question whether or not something was administrated fairly. Only Democrats are allowed to say those kinds of things, because when there are, in fact, credible threats of foreign interference, like, for example, Iran attempting to assassinate the president of the United States, or the former president of the United States at the time, Donald Trump, 3 separate times, that when there are intelligence reports about foreign nations which are interfering in U.S. processes, whether they be elections, whether they be official operations, federal processes, federal investigations and arrests. Can I get a New York mayor candidate? When you intervene, when you interfere, that is in fact something that should be documented, that should be brought to the director of the FBI, who should then report honestly to Congress. It looks like there's good evidence to suggest FBI Director Chris Wray didn't do that. I know, shock and horror, because, come on, we all knew that about Chris Wray. We've known that since the beginning. Now he's out there taking, Instagram photos of himself. And you got James Comey as well out there saying 86-47 and other kinds of nonsense. So whether it's Christopher Wray, whether it's James Comey, no matter who it is on the FBI side of things, there is sufficient evidence to suggest reports were filed. We just got through this with Chuck Grassley's office, that there were reports that suggested that individuals who testified, they had never had anything to do with the Steele dossier regarding the Russia-Trump collusion nonsense and urinating Russian prostitutes. That the individuals who testified in Congress had nothing to do with it. They were just independent experts. That the direct negation of those claims was sent to Attorney General Barr. And we don't know if Barr ever got them or not. We don't know if Wray ever got these documents or not. So when Trump came into office and said that the federal agencies are corrupt, that a deep state had been acting directly, consciously, maybe not as a massive conspiracy, but kind of more the, which comedian is it that says that the massive conspiracy is everyone doing the same thing? George Carlin. When Carlin suggests that, in fact, the grandest, most easy, the Occam's razor, simple answer here is that a group of people who despised Donald Trump in these agencies may have obfuscated or interfered or obstructed justice and investigations in order to hurt Donald Trump. It has permanently harmed the credibility of these organizations and these institutions. And in the purest sense of the word, it is a damned shame. Because we are at a point in time in which there are, in fact, things that the FBI needs to suggest to the American people that only an investigative agency can be clear about without releasing a bunch of sensitive information, say about the Epstein files. Now Americans don't trust him. It's too late. When you throw all of that out, when you throw out Chinese election interference in 2020, you don't investigate it. You just kind of throw it out the window so that, again, all of these fake IDs and passports and things that, again, are allowing illegal immigrants to bypass E-Verify right now and work at slave labor wages, which we're going to get into in tomorrow's show. You undermine all of the credibility of the institution so that when Trump comes through with Elon Musk and says, all right, let's see who's doing what 5 things did you do today? And you have all of the whining, sniveling federal employees to go, Senator Jim Banks, I was fired. Don't you care? I was an environmental social justice jungle lesbian trainer. And then Jim Banks says, no, you probably deserved it. That's why Americans feel that way. Americans feel like federal agents, that federal employees who were fired deserve this crap because again and again and again and again and again, we have evidence that individuals in these unelected bureaucratic hellholes acted explicitly against the interests of Americans because they thought Orange Man bad. Orange Man bad, and now here we are yet again, another administration. There are fewer individuals who are overtly defying the Trump administration. Now we have acts of malicious compliance. All right, we're going to get rid of DEI. All right, we're going to scrub the name of Harriet Tubman from every museum in the country. No. We have issues like that malicious compliance nonsense. And then on the other side of things, you have individuals in the Trump administration who are leaking things to the media, things that are very sensitive, like potential military operations that are being leaked to Reuters or Axios or CNN. Now, at this point, I'll tell you something that's really funny. It appears the Trump administration, and I think I may be the first one to say this, so here we go. Here's my prediction, totally unfounded. Have you noticed that in the last couple of days that Trump has been reported by Axios, by CNN, by Reuters, by the Washington Post, that, oh, he's going to call for a ceasefire. Oh, he's going to resume negotiations on Sunday. Oh, he's going to issue a big statement after the National Security Council. And then a couple of hours later, Trump says, nah, I'm not doing that. Calling a lid. It's time for me to hang out with Melania. And none of that stuff ends up being true. If there is one surefire way to combat those who are leaking things to the press, right now who are leaking things to the press, ideally without actually leaking the documents, because then you can get into some counter-espionage that can make it really easy to find who's the leaker. That if the New York Times and the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal cannot trust anonymous sources from the administration because the administration is feeding staffers phony nonsense. I just got to say that. If that's true, that's a brilliant masterclass play by the administration. And that doesn't even have to be President Trump playing 4D chess. That sounds like Susie Wiles. That sounds like Susie Wiles, sick of the crap, sick of the shenanigans. That sounds like Marco Rubio and JD Vance, by the way, who on X today, sick of the crap. And now it is time to get things done. And all of the whining and the mewling and the preening and the social media nonsense, no. Time to cook or get out of the kitchen. And with that, a little bit of bonus tonus at the end of the show today. I hope that you have a wonderful evening. We'll be back tomorrow. Same great time, same great place. Throw a like on the video, or even better, subscribe to the Daily Signals YouTube channel. That helps us out. And then we don't have to track you down and, shove flyers in your face. Kind of a win for everyone. We'll be back soon. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC. Take care.